Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Super League Pom-Cast. You'd have listened to part 1 the other day. You'll be listening to part 2 right now. Of course, I'm rejoined with Andy from the Only in Rugby League from the Only in Rugby League podcast. Oh my days! The rebrand's taken its toll on me, Andy. I forgot how to pronounce pod.
Ours,
The Only in Rugby League Only in Rugby League could a other podcast host get the name wrong. But we spoke about in the last part, of course, Mr. Nigel Wood and his claim to power. He's basically Gaddafi'd it, is what he's done. Yeah. Or Saddam Hussein'd it, depending on which one you want to go by.
He's trumped it.
He's trumped it. Hey, he's got to mention. He's got to mention it. Oh, I'm saying that though. Freaking his decision making's a bit like Trump. So,
yeah, mind you, so Trump would probably say he's been a disaster and he's done a bad job. Yeah.
Nah, he'll probably say, last time I was in power, it was so good. We did so well. Yeah. We got a great TV deal. It was fantastic. Really great. The Bradford Bulls are the best club. I've said it before. The Bradford Bulls are the best club in the world.
Oh, I like that,
yeah. There we go. That'll be Nigel Wood in the next press conference. But we are talking about the standard of English Super League and how it's really changed over the past, even 3 or 4 years, you can even say. And then going back further, you've got your 7 and 10 year cycles. Like, sport's a cycle, we all know that. But for this many teams at the minute to be going through a downward cycle is a bit strange. Because at the minute, we've got a 12-team competition. We spoke about, obviously, potentially moving to a 14-team competition. And this is a conversation I want to trigger. If we, at the minute, have got essentially a 9-team Super League, and even that is at a push with the way Catalans are playing at the minute and Warrington are playing at the minute. You could potentially argue for a 7-team comp out of 12. Yeah. And we're halfway through the season. We're not even near the business end at the minute. Like, we're 2/3 of the way through. Like, where does adding 2 extra teams, taking away the player pool even more, thinning it out, where does that even get you? Does that improve the competition and the quality, or does that just add 2 more dead rubbers, especially if two more teams are not getting any central funding?
Depends on those 2 teams where
as the rumours are.
Yeah, if those 2 teams are on a par with the bottom 3, then you're not gaining anything, are you? If those 2 extra teams kickstart the current bottom 3 into something else, I don't know. But are you just, like you said, you're just diluting then, so that you've still got a 9-team league, but you've got 14. You're just getting rid of loop fixtures.
Yeah, and you've got a day out to a different away day.
I mean,
compared to last.
Yeah, and it comes back to what we were talking about.
You can go visit Chernobyl.
Yeah, and that's
in West Yorkshire.
Yeah. And get wet. Yeah, at the same time.
Get wet.
Well,
do you reckon it is acid rain in Bradford?
Yeah. Are you talking about it comes back to what we were talking about at the last episode, where we were talking about the structures of these clubs and how they're building, and how they're going to. You can't just plonk teams in an elite competition and expect them to be. I mean, if you look at expecting to be successful. If you look at, currently, 3 of the top 6 have all spent time in the Championship in the last 10 years.
Yeah, true.
And they've had to build not just the team, but if you look at the 3 in question, Hull KR, Lee, and Wakefield, they've built a club.
Yeah, built a community.
Yeah, they built a club, and I think that's all credit to those.
They've got the fans that left reinvested in the vision and in the dream of the club.
So if you're gonna add teams into it, if you're gonna add another 2 teams into it, it needs to be following that example
and selling the dream.
Not just like, say, a Toronto where you just had a team in for a trip to Canada or something,
Yeah.
So it needs to be that,
Yeah.
the three, and I don't think it's any coincidence that they've been forced into building the community and building the club. And I think,
Well, you look at
all
York,
credit to
like we
those
said,
three teams.
you mentioned Oldham in the last episode and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Pumping money in.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe they are building for that projective. Maybe not if it's a 14 team, and maybe they're building for a 10-year vision of, right, we're just going to be the top club in the championship for five years, and then they've got no excuse not to bring us up.
That's right.
Featherstone tried it when it was promotion and relegation, but they flapped. They flapped it every single year.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
And now they're near bankrupt. Well, granted, they didn't pay half the players anyway, so it didn't matter.
No, it helps now they've got a ground and everything, I think, as well. But look at two clubs in particular there, mate. If you look at Wakefield and Castleford, it's the same local authority.
Same council, yeah.
Exactly. But look at the differences in the two clubs, the way that it is now.
But they were very similar for a long time.
Exactly that. And
change of owner has changed.
And go back to 2017, and Castleford were at the top of the tree.
Yeah.
Wakefield not so much. Wakefield had a disastrous season when they went down. I mean, they ended up with quite not just defeats, but they ended up with quite a few nil-ins, and they were wondering at one point where we're going to win a game, weren't they? That's how bad they were. And if you look where they are now, and you look at the two teams now and how they've built, it's night and day, isn't it?
Huge.
And that's not about the ground, and so I mean, partly it is. I mean, Wakefield have invested a lot into there.
It hugely is, because that's the sign of the investment and the change of attitude. Granted, the old ownership got the plans submitted and got it approved, etc. But the new administration, well, it was being built by the old administration, but the new administration managed to allow the funding of that to continue, but also pump money in elsewhere. Whereas the other one, it was either, look, we focus on the stadium and other things don't get funded. Whereas the new owners came in and went, don't worry, we'll fund it all.
But if you look at those three clubs now,
and they now moved away from training on a park field to training at the ground.
Yeah,
with facilities and top class facilities.
Well, you look at those three clubs. What I was going to say, you look at those three clubs that we just mentioned there that have built the community. Not just built the community. You look at Wakefield, pretty much built a new ground. They've done, they've had massive improvements on the ground. Well, yeah, and two. You can argue that the main stand as well looks far better. They've built that, and
that's what I mean. The main stand.
They put the roof on the terracing behind the pole.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and turn that into the home end, because that used to be the away end, didn't it?
Yeah.
So they've turned that in. They've turned that into that, and really built well in their first season back in, and you could see
looking to do the other stands. They're on about planning permission and stuff. So
yeah, and you could see them in the not too distant future doing perhaps what Hull KR and Lee have done and winning the Challenge Cup.
Yeah,
and again you take those two, and they've lifted trophies and come close on other occasions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, they have, and they've knocked out big teams doing that as well.
Exactly.
They haven't just done it lightly. But then, like, for me, the Hull KR are the pillar of that club. They are flying at the minute. They went down and went, right, we're having a reset. We're taking the club off the market. It was up for sale. No, it's up for sale as of 4 years ago. Yeah. It was only Huggle going, know what, I'm going to get other investors involved.
Yeah.
Got them. And now spending money, changed the business plan, decided to actually have a plan, like we were talking about, a 25-year plan with the NRL. They were like, right, we're having a 10-year plan, and we're going to be here, and we're going to be the number one club in Hull. Yeah. They already are the number one club in Hull at the minute.
Yeah, but
not the biggest club in Hull, but they are the number one club.
Number one club, yeah, definitely. If you look at what they've done, I mean, the atmosphere and the match day stuff at Hull KR.
The size of the ground helps there as well.
It does, but in terms of atmosphere and things like that, yourself. Away games normally, it's more tribal. Away games normally generate more atmosphere, but I think as a home team, theirs is probably the best, isn't it?
Oh, easily.
And
maybe Leeds when they're on top
when they're on
form.
form with the South Stand, yeah. But then you look at
but they need a band for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't.
But they've
Need
got
pay a band from Sheffield to get.
They've got all this. Yeah, they've got all this Craven Street stuff. They've saying, look, come in.
They took that off Toronto.
Club. Yeah, this is your club.
That used to be the away end, and it was awful. It was about 50 metres away.
Yeah, you couldn't see a thing, could you? Yeah, couldn't see a thing in there. But then you can say, look, we've done this. You've got this. We want you to come in 3 o'clock kickoff. We want you to in here at 1 o'clock, soaking everything up, getting ready for
spending
the game.
money, and putting money behind our in our pockets.
Customer service, and then you get behind the team, and we'll do our bit for you on the pitch.
Well, I've said this for years as a Saints fan. I mean, you've been to the Saints ground, so you know, like, the options of what is actually there compared to a lot of other clubs. Like, you wonder why, like, Eamon McManus mentioned it, you have to look at other sources of income, etc., etc., etc. You look at what OKR have done, and they went, you know what, that away end is wasted. We don't fill it anyway. Why don't we create this arena of street food, make money, and use that and turn it to profit? Now, you look at Lee, have like the fan zone outside where they have their own bar outside on a nice sunny day. It's absolutely class, that fan zone that away fans can go to. Home fans will spend money on. They've got a singer there. They've done all that. And then, like, Saints have announced this Halo stage, is it, or something?
Yeah, for non-match days.
For non-match days.
Yeah.
Why aren't they doing that on a match day and creating a fan zone and getting more money, putting a bar out there temporarily, allowing people to go to Red V Bar, buy a drink and bring it round into set up a little nice... Why aren't they doing that?
There'd be local
for
bands.
A match day.
There'd be local bands that would want to get on that stage for nothing and just to showcase themselves.
Easily. I played at my home stadium.
Exactly that. It's just
they do it for free. I mean, they shouldn't. You should always pay the artist.
Yes, but you know what I mean.
I'm 100% backer, but they would happily do it.
Yeah.
And yet they were like, "Oh, we're doing it on non-match days. Do it on match days. This easy money."
I know.
I sat there like banging my head against the wall, going, "What are you doing? That has to be something that the council have said you can't do. Yeah. It has to be in order to have people go to the town centre because it's close to the town centre."
Yeah.
But that's the only reason I can see that club not doing that. But Hull KR have decided, look, we're going to turn that into profit. We can see money here.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the smaller clubs need to do.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, on the field, Hull KR are standout, aren't they?
Easily.
Compared to anybody else. Now,
they've got the recruitment right. They've got the coaching right.
So let me ask you this: you talk about
and they're slowly building a youth team. I know they've got to buy them at the minute, but
very slowly, But
very slowly.
But let me ask you this then: you talk about the standard of the league and how poor it's been, or how poor it is, or whatever compared. Yeah. If Hull KR win the grand final, okay, they'll have won the treble, won't they?
Yes.
Right.
Oh, sorry. If Wigan fans now say it doesn't count legally,
doesn't right? All right. Did last year?
They're now saying it doesn't count. Did last year, and I'm sure the year before, probably.
Yeah. Right.
But it doesn't now. It's, they'll say they won the double if they win the league lead.
So
they haven't.
So of the teams that have won the treble,
yeah.
So Bradford, was it 03 or 04? That period. Saints 06, Leeds 2015. Wigan 24
last year.
Where do they rank? Where do Hull KR rank in if they did it out of those five? The five treble.
They'll rank bottom.
Do you think?
Because of the standard of the competition, mate. You talk about the nil-ins. They've nilled Salford twice.
Mm. Yeah.
Like they've had 5 nil-ins. They're only one away from the record, etc. I'm like, yeah, but they've nilled Salford twice. So did they count?
I don't know. See, I'd be tempted.
You will always have that argument.
I know. I'd be tempted. I don't think there's much to pick if they won it. Well, there's certainly not much to pick between this year and last year.
No.
So I think on there. And I personally don't think there's that much to be picked with them between Leeds in 2015.
I agree.
And then I think you've got Bradford that are a step up from them, from those three.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you've got Saints that are a step up again.
Yeah, that 06. I mean, I know I'm biased, but that 06 side is hands down the greatest side I've ever seen.
The greatest club.
And then they went and won the World Cup Challenge the year after, so they cemented that.
So they had all four.
You look at the players that they had. Like, if you look at them players and you put them compared to all the other treble-winning sides, player by player, I think there's only potentially Leeds and Bradford that would go by it. But then if you go by standard of comp, the standard of comp when Bradford and Saints won it were a lot higher than it was then.
Yeah.
Because we could entice bigger names.
Which is what I was going to come on to with you. So if you look at that 20 years ago now, I mean...
Our salary cap was more than theirs.
We're not going to see... Yeah. We're not going to see another Jamie Lyon in the league, are we? No?
No. Not unless someone does something really, really bad in Australia and can't get another deal.
But there was other players at that time as well. I'm talking people like...
Jason Kalis.
Willie Talau.
He came over. Willie Talau.
Yeah. Even
Leslie Vinacolo, Shante Harpy.
Maury Fasavalu.
He came from rugby union, to be fair.
Yeah. But the players that were there then, and even then, if you wind forward 10 years,
Pat Richards,
and you wind forward,
because he was 08.
But then you look at people that you wind forward 10 years for Leeds, like Kylie Luluai and people like that. Different
and
class.
What's his name? Brett Delaney.
Yeah, Brett Delaney. I'm looking at the
Brent Webb.
Brent Webb. Who was the winger that Leeds had? Donald, wasn't it? Scott Donald.
Scott Donald. Yeah. I was just thinking about him the other day. 'Cause he's a copper now.
Right.
He's a copper out here.
You probably met half of these because you
I met Pat Richards.
Every week you send me about 3 photos with like Nathan Cleary or something. Right?
That was just because of Perth, man. I just got lucky with that. But, everyone else stopped following Nathan. I was like, Nathan, Isaiah.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to the Ashes, lads? Oh, sounds like you are. I was like, oh yeah. Everyone else buggered off because security would told them Jeff off.
So I heard, right, last night I was watching the Sky commentary last night, and they were saying on the Sky commentary it would be an absolute travesty if Hull KR and Wigan weren't in the grand final. Do you agree?
If Hull KR aren't there,
yeah,
I don't think Wigan have lost to one of them bottom 3 sides we spoke about. So why do they deserve to be there?
Yeah,
we said there's that big of a gulf, and they nearly lost to one of them sides in Huddersfield. Yeah. So we're talking about this big gulf in class, and yet they were a last-second try away from losing against one of them big gulf in classes. So do they deserve there?
They probably are.
It's a playoff system.
Well, it's down to semi-finals at the end, isn't it? And the chances are they'll probably have a home semi-final because they'll probably finish second.
More than likely.
But if you look at third, fourth, fifth, and sixth as they stand now, which to be honest, I can't see much change in that. Really, there might be a change in the order, but I'm not quite sure there's a change in the teams. I think Leeds, Lee, and Saints will be there, and I think
Wakefield will probably be the 6th.
Can they hold on?
I'm tipping them.
Can they? Yeah, can they? I mean, who does it come down to then? Catalans, Hull, and Warrington. So
all 3 of them.
Warrington have got a lot of injuries. They had another one this week, didn't they? They lost Lindop last week as well, didn't they? Now.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got a lot of injuries.
But why is that an excuse this year for Mr. Burgess, but last year for Paul Wellens it wasn't?
Oh, I agree. And we said on our podcast...
Even this year.
Well, we said on our podcast...
Saints' injury list is quite big.
I did a bit of a comparison on our podcast this week.
I know.
Between Saints and Warrington and saying, actually, like, you've got 2 coaches there. One, the fan base can't wait to get rid of because the team's terrible. And I think that's the case for the other one in Warrington now. The fans can't wait to get rid of him. The difference is that the Warrington's coach now keeps getting touted for every job going.
And interviewed for every job going.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Wellens, if he gets sacked by Saints, probably won't get another job.
Yeah. It's strange.
Which is mental.
Situation. He'd probably end up doing what Steve McNamara did and end up going to the NRL as an assistant, maybe.
Thought you were going to say then coach the youth academy.
A little bit of gardening in the afternoon, just do that, yeah. Yeah.
Gardening leave for 3 years.
Yeah. It's bizarre. But yeah, it's
yeah, maybe go over to the NRL and get an assistant's gig, but
I can't see Warrington breaking in the top 6. I can't see Catalans doing it either.
I can't see Catalan, but with Mister Rectum of Wigan coaching him, I can't see them getting anywhere near like even winning a game.
Hull could see sneaking in 6th. Partly because of what I feel is that the standards that John Cartwright has implemented a bit.
Yeah, the fitness standards.
Yeah, I don't think they're
a lot fitter compared to last time.
I don't think they'll be allowed to drop off.
Well, if he can get the Gold Coast Titans to the playoffs, which he did back in the day,
then he can
certainly get Hull FC there.
But if you said 3v6 and 4v5, which we were talking about, you're saying let's just say it's Leeds as it stands at the minute. Let's say it's Leeds and Leigh that went through.
Mm-hmm.
That means that Leeds would go to Wigan.
Yeah,
There's no guarantee of Wigan winning that.
No, I mean you look at the Salford 2019 game in the semi-final when they lost the first time they played Wigan. And then they played them in the semi-final because they won the backup. And they beat them.
Yeah.
And demolished them, by the way, and then played Saints in the final.
Yeah.
And then got beat. But, like, that game, Wigan were like, we're through to the final. It's Saints-Wigan final, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
They got beat.
Yeah.
Leeds as well in 22, wasn't it?
Yes.
When they got there.
Rowan Smith got them there eventually.
With that like 13 win run.
That's right.
Or something ridiculous. And then Wigan fans thought they won that.
Yeah, they came up short in the end in the final, but they were to get there. Yeah.
So there's no guarantee with anything. It's playoffs. That's the excitement of it. That's why it's brought in to the competition in the first place. We've always had a playoff system.
I mean, it's Hull KR's to lose. But saying that, as recently as Wembley, if Matty Ashton plays, Hull KR don't win the cup.
Mm-hmm.
So
but these are them sliding doors moment. That's why sport's great. That's why sport's great.
And they broke that hoodoo, and that could give them now the impetus to go on for the next few years.
It could well do, it could continue to be one of the 4 teams that have already won it. That's the problem for me. You look at the NRL. The NRL is the pinnacle of our sport. It's the Barclays Premier League of rugby league. You know what I mean? It's the number one competition. It's the highest funded. It is the highest budget completely. Whereas 20 years ago, the salary cap in England was higher than the salary cap here because of exchange rates, etc. Now the financial market's changed. It's now gone from $3.50 to the pound to $2. And our budget, our transfer salary cap has gone from, what was it then, about 1.6 million to 2.1. Theirs has gone from $4 million to next year going up to 15 million.
Yeah.
So that's huge. So this is the Barclays Premier League of it. Now they've had, is it 10 different winners, I want to say, of the grand final since the NRL period. And we've only had 4.
Yeah. And, it changes every year. I mean, you look at, the Bulldogs were dreadful for the last couple of years, haven't they?
Yeah.
And straight away, it's turned
But
around
they've rebuilt.
But you can't imagine Huddersfield doing that at the minute.
No, you couldn't at all, because they've been on a downward slump though. Saying that Bulldogs did but Huddersfield have been on a downward slump now for probably 2 years, and they've probably invested the heaviest out of probably any club. Poor Ken Davey, man. I mean, I think didn't it get leaked that they were paying something like 2.8 million? They're on par with Saints in terms of funding spent on squad.
Yeah.
Compared to what they're now getting back.
We desperately, though, we've said about the imports that are coming in, that a second rate compared to what they used to be. I mean,
hugely.
I mean, some of it's dreadful, but we need, whether it's through better imports, and I don't see how that happens nowadays because of what you've just said with the exchange rate and the salary cap. I just don't see that happening. But we definitely
the closest we've got now is David Armstrong, because he turned down an NRL gig that was worth more money to come and play for Lee because he wanted to travel Europe.
And yet he's never fit. He's got his leg bandaged. He looks like Forrest Gump, like before we took the calipers off. Do you know what I mean?
I did love how I told what's his name? He played second row today for the Dolphins. Oh, what's his name? He's only small like this lad. And I was speaking to him and he was like, I'm best mates with Tessie New and David Armstrong. And I told him the comment that you made that on your podcast where you said, how does Armstrong pull any muscles? He's not got any. And he was like, hey, he's slim, hey, there's nothing on him.
So that's got all the way back to the Dolphins second rower.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to remember his name. I can't remember his name. He's only.
I tell you what, I know we're talking about Super League, but I tell you what, with the Dolphins, aren't they just the most marvelous team to watch?
How the hell, by the way, did Steve Alford used to slag off Wolf Ball? It's the most entertaining style of rugby.
I watched them play the Bunnies, and mate, just brilliant to watch.
Yeah,
and there was a game on. There was a game on this week, Super League, Leeds and Lee, 48-30, and then the day after you've got the Bunnies and the Dolphins. Those two games, that's how rugby league should be played.
Free flowing, endless.
It was both games brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And what I was going to say before, though, was about the imports. I don't think the imports come in anymore because of the salary cap, etc., as you explained. But we desperately need to get out of this 9-team league.
Yeah, hugely. I mean, the three teams we're talking about here, like we said, are Huddersfield, Castleford. They've really been on a downward slump the last 6 years, probably.
Yeah.
Because they had the heydays of 2015 to 2018.
Yeah.
And then I think they've been on downward spiral since. They were in and around the playoffs 2019, but then since then they've just been down, and they've been bottom 3 clobber, bottom 2 clobber. If it weren't for Wakefield being as bad as they were the other year, they'd have probably gone down.
Basically,
because they were only Gale,
since Luke Gale went, they've done nothing.
And a few others, to be fair. Basically, Zach Hardacre's drug fueled.
School.
Yeah. See, do you remember that? Do you remember that I was watching Harry Hill's TV Burp? Do you remember the Muslim driving school that used to be on?
Oh, a clip of that.
So what a weird one. It's like, and Harry Hill's like, because they're like, oh yeah, she's been driving for 5 months. Yeah, I really think she'll pass. He's like getting a bottle of champagne out. He's like, ready with it. I'm sorry, you haven't passed today. Oh, sorry, what was it I did wrong? When you went up to the roundabout and you should have turned left and you went the wrong way around the roundabout.
Yeah,
Harry's
definitely Zach
Hardacre.
Okay. I want to see him have a race against Scott Moore.
I want to see how many tasers they can take. We got Bobby versus versus Snoop
Everybody.
Dogg, and
Everybody.
we got
Yeah.
everybody under the sun, and we've got Scott Ball versus Zach Hardacre. Jesus.
In the last week alone, Bobby was called out for having to try and get a race against Ryan Hall and Tualola here.
Do you remember when Elijah Taylor left Catalan and he went to Canberra, and then he got sacked by Canberra and he piled on a load of weight?
Yeah, that's what it was like. Yeah.
Or Jamie Ellis.
Jamie Ellis.
Bobby and Jamie Ellis.
The biggest one I thought like that was like absolutely unrecognisable when he came to Super League because of the weight problem was Dave Taylor.
Yeah. Was that the one I was on about? Yeah, not yet. Dave Taylor, not
Dave
Elijah Taylor.
He went to Catalans from the
Sorry,
Titans,
yeah.
Oh dearie me, yeah. All of a sudden he was about 22 stone. Yeah, it's but you said about that cast. What take Huddersfield then in the bottom three?
Yeah,
that might help when they move grounds. It's cavernous for them.
But they keep. It's like he said on the Bench podcast, Ken Davey, and he was like, we've pumped in upwards of $250,000 into failed applications for land. Well, he said it was six figures, so like you've got to say that, and they've just had another one rejected by the council, Kirklees Council.
Yeah,
it's like they just can't catch a break.
Yeah,
like they need this smaller ground massively.
Yeah.
And then where do they go? Do they go to somewhere like Doncaster?
Yeah.
Do they go to somewhere like Batley or Dewsbury or one of them? I just don't know what they do. And the thing is, though, you can't just be saying, "Oh, we get a small ground, we'll be all right." It's not an excuse. They were doing all right in that big stadium 2-3 years ago. They were what, top 3? They won the league in 2014 in that big stadium.
That's true.
Not 2014, 2013.
I'm probably getting a bit romantic over the fact that they nearly beat Wigan at Dewsbury. I thought it might have helped, but yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah,
so like they've had success in the past. You can't just blame a stadium on that. You've got to blame A, poor recruitment, B, poor coaching choices. Dean Watson on paper was a good coaching recruit, but he fell out with all the players.
But as a fan now, is this where we are now as a standard? If you look at the top 6 now, is this where we are?
Probably.
So until we get more exciting homegrown...
But the Aussies won't pay attention to that. Like, you can go into a pub, like my local pub, and after all the NRL games on, they'll have the Super League games on. Because it's easier to watch Super League games over here than it is to watch it in England, because it's on Sky Sports Plus and all that shite. And the games will be on, and they're like, mate, is this what you have to watch every week? It was Cass and Leeds that were on the telly when I was last in the pub. They went, is this what you have to watch every week? I went, yeah. And this is awful.
So why? Right.
You're not going to have Australian eyes looking on it if the quality is that bad.
So what's wrong with the quality when they're saying is this what you have to watch? It's so bad. For what reason are they saying it's bad? Because because you're there, right? I'm here, so we see the NRL when they tell you, "Oh, it's a great game." So this, that, and the other. It's quick. It's this, that, and the other. We get used to what we're watching, don't we?
So they were playing at Cass, right? And they were saying the camera angles are shite.
Okay.
So the way the camera's positioned and the way it is on screen, you look at any NRL team, it's panned out. You can pretty much see the whole game, and when they zoom in or show replay, like Sky were doing it at the start of this season, where a replay goes on and they put the live screen in a little corner. Now Sky have stopped even doing that. So them little things that Sky were getting right in production, they're now not bothering doing.
Yeah,
which I don't get.
Is it not just that they missed the margin meter?
No.
All right, just checking.
But the main thing was the camera angle and the production. They hated that because it doesn't show the game of rugby league great when you compare it to NRL. Secondly, was the mud and the quality of the pitch. Because it was at Cass, and it had been raining non-stop, and like it was like all the kits were absolutely covered, and And also the way the grass was, etc. They were like, it looks poor.
Yeah.
Aesthetically as well.
Okay.
But that also changes the quality of the game. So over here, they're on a dry track. So they play attacking, entertaining rugby. Now, it's gone from the defensive ruggedness to attacking rugby now over here. Whereas over in the UK, when it's a boggy pitch, it's not very attacking.
I feel sometimes that we've, obviously with the influx of Australian coaches and things like that, I'm going back a few years now, obviously, but we seem to like try and copy the NRL, which was always had a reputation of being defensively minded. And now that's moved on again, and we're left behind.
To attacking minded.
I remember I had a background in football, and I remember going to a conference once, and we were obsessed in England. We were obsessed with anything Dutch at the time.
Yes, 4-3-3 and stuff like
obsessed, anything like that. And the Dutch used to have these little footballs, and they were like these mini footballs, and it was like what it was about manipulation of the ball and like, how many touches can you get on this ball and all this. Anyway, went to this like conference, and the guy from the FA got up and he goes, "Oh, we've introduced this and all this sort of stuff, and like we're hoping to produce the next lot of players because we've copied you and this one." Guy from the Dutch FA goes, "That's really interesting, thanks. We've actually abandoned that now and moved on to this." And he was like, "Everyone now plays with size 5 balls instead of these little ones, but they're lighter." And that's what it said. And that's how I feel with the NRL. That like we've copied the NRL for years, but now they've moved on again.
But that will always
copy
happen.
The old style.
But that will always happen because if you're always trying to copy something, that person is always 2 steps ahead of you. So that person will always be changing and evolving and adapting, and you'll be left at dust.
But we're copying what they were doing 2 steps ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
Wrestling, being dominant, slowing
the slow ruck. That was another point that they said. The ruck is so slow and so messy was one of the things that they said. The referees don't control the ruck over there in England. No. Over here, they're very good at controlling it, bar Ashley Klein. But he had an apprenticeship in the Super League, so you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it's so messy.
Well, at one point, I never got here because we didn't have enough refs. But at one point, they had 2 refs, didn't they? At one point.
Yeah, and then they scrapped that because they realised it was just pointless.
Yeah, and one of the refs was primarily looking at the ruck, wasn't he?
Yeah. That was effectively it. Yeah. And then they went, "Oh no, we'll go to 1 because that ref can do that."
Yeah, which he'd done for 100 years before that. Yeah.
And we sent our best ref over in Tim Roby, and now he's retired.
Yeah.
He only ever did that second ref job. He never did any.
Yeah. Well, the other
one main refing.
Well, the other one that went over was Russell Smith. Years ago, he went over years ago, and he had a decent career in the NRL. I think he was well respected.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think Tim Roby now works for the NRL.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly, it's in an article about him.
Yeah.
But it's just a weird thing, and we talk about this quality of, not even just that though, the quality of refereeing as well in England. I know, and by the way, I hate ref bashing and all that, but that quality has come down to funding that we talk about in the last episode, because referees don't get as much funding, they don't get as much training. They're full time now.
Yeah.
But their full time is like so small in comparison. Yeah. And yet we lost, I think it was 2 refs at one point because they wanted to still do their own job on the side. And they went, "No, you're full focus. You have a full time with us or you're not." I can't remember the 2 refs, but there was 2 of them, and they went, "Oh, well, we're going to leave then because we're making more money if we went full time at our other place."
Was Child one?
Childs was one, and was Hicks the one?
Well, Hicks was employed by the RFL as legal.
Yeah, he was.
Because he was a qualified.
And then he had to go back to part-time refing because we had no refs.
Yeah. So.
And
yeah.
Childs was one, and then there was someone else, I think.
I also think as well that years ago, we had probably a goal, as like we had players. We probably had a golden generation of refs. You could name all the refs from that period: Richard Silverwood, Steve Ganson, Ian Smith, Thierry Alibert. Phil Bentham.
seven tackle Thierry.
Yeah, Phil Bentham. And I think
Ashley Klein.
Ashley Klein, and you could still name that bunch of refs from
Yeah.
yesteryear. Whereas I think, and over time, it's definitely declined.
Yeah. By the way, the referee at the St George game, I don't know if you ever seen him on the telly. He is a spitting image of Tom Grant.
Yeah.
Do you know which one I'm on about? He genuinely
Yeah.
is the spitting image of Tom Grant. I'm
Was
like,
he?
every week I see him and I'm like, he reminds me of him.
Was he the one with the moustache, or is that another one?
That's another one.
That's another one. Because he was on. I saw him over the weekend as well on the television. Yeah. Can't remember which game he was doing, but yeah, it was. I'll have to have I'll look out for him.
Yeah, look, I'll get his name and then, or I'll take a picture one day and I'll send it. Yeah,
Right,
but that's the issue though, and like we talk about the quality and all that, but how do we improve that quality? Is then the next question, because it's got to come from the academies, and it's got to come from abroad.
Yeah.
But how do we get that?
You'll never do it,
right?
But I always think there should be certain rules on imports that they've played certain level or a certain number of games or a certain age or something along those. I know it will never happen.
But
I think
there's a lot of good golden players in the New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup that haven't been given a shot yet that would do a tremendous job in Super League.
I haven't got an objection to that. If that's the way you can justify it, that's fine. My issue comes with more now.
Fartilli, for example.
Yes, exactly that.
Perfect example. Not played a game in first grade.
Now I know you're a big fan of Papali'i coming to Saints, aren't you?
Yes. If he's coming as a prop forward.
Right. My view is, and he might do it for 2 years. My view is that he's 33, 34, doesn't want to play anybody else in the NRL. If Canberra would have probably offered him 1 more year, he'd have probably stayed.
They did.
So it's more about.
He's also about to be called up to Queensland, as reports are saying.
Why a Super League? And I'm not singling out Papali'i as an example, but you see where I'm going with it in terms of age. He's beat up. Most of the forwards that come from the NRL are beat up because they've played that many games. I'll give you another example for Saints like that was
Josh Perry,
Luke Douglas.
Luke Douglas was always the man that would just do a job in the NRL. He's Mr. Consistent. He's kind of like, who's a prop forward for the Tigers? Woods. He always just does a job. No. But Aaron Woods was similar. He always just did a job. But what's his name? He's Lebanese. Oh, that's going to do me head in as well. He sometimes has played loose forward, but he always plays prop. But he was always one of them that would just take it in, give you main props a bit of rest, and he'd do a job while he was on. Yeah. So when he came to Saints, that's the way we should have played him. But we decided to play him as some big, huge meat maker. Granted, if he fell over, he'd have made more yards than most players.
And I know you've always got exceptions. Steve Menzies was one, for example.
He was about 40 when he came over.
Exactly, and still did, was brilliant. And I know you've always got those exceptions. I'm just saying about, you asked me about where we would improve. And it's about, obviously, it's about the community stuff. It's about having more homegrown players. It's about improving the pool. But I think the overseas player situation, the import players, has to complement that.
Yes.
And that's where I think,
Catalan are the perfect example of getting it right in terms of on paper, but it's not coming into fruition this year.
No.
Nick Kotrick being very, very good for them.
Yeah.
Remus Smith, very, very good player. You look at Luke Keary, who was going to retire and then came out of retirement to then join Catalan.
Yeah.
You look at Pengai Jr. They're 4 huge NRL names.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're not producing on the pitch.
But
on paper, they're the perfect signings.
Yeah, I suppose this season now, I think the exciting thing is about now for me, I think, can anyone stop Hull KR? And it's who's going to make, in what order you have 3, 4, 5, and 6, and can anybody dislodge Wakey in 6? I think they're the 3 issues, I think, for this season.
Yeah.
Now.
True. And also, do you think one way of improving the quality of them smaller clubs, you look at teams like Wigan, right? They've got Jack Farrimond there, who is playing essentially any position he can whenever necessary.
Yeah.
But he's a halfback and hardly ever plays. But yeah, I bet you any money he would go into that cast side at 6 and improve them. Yeah. Or he'd go into the Huddersfield side, he'd definitely go into the Salford side and improve them.
Yeah.
So like we've got a lot of young players that don't get given an opportunity at the bigger clubs only when there's an injury.
Yeah.
Why aren't we allowing them as a short-term fix, potentially for a season-long loan, to go to clubs like that?
Yeah, I totally agree. Because
potentially.
I think they'd get more value out of that.
Look at Sam Essay at Hull FC.
Yeah, I think they'd get more...
He was never going to play for Wigan.
No, that's right. And I think they'd get more value out of that. And English Rugby League would get more value out of that than a second-rate import.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look at that Assy for... Well, Cass have got rid of 2 of the Papua New Guinea signings already, 2 quota spots. You look at Saints and the quota spots that they've utilised. Yeah. They've got James Bell, who's been injured all season. They've got Iggy Pargy, who averages 7 metres a game.
Yeah.
Conrad Hurrell, who's currently on loan at Bradford. There's 3 imports there. Yeah, 3 quota spots. And then you've got clubs saying, we need more quota spots. That won't help with the English game.
Not at all. And
that would kill the English game.
And I do think that's what we should be looking at. That's the ultimate thing. To me, that's what the ultimate thing, that's what the ultimate aim should be in English Rugby League is how do we beat the Kangaroos?
Exactly.
That should be at the top of the rainbow.
That should be the umbrella.
That should be it. Yeah. That's it.
That should be the umbrella and everything underneath it.
Exactly.
And that's an absolute perfect summary for it. And there's only one way we can do that, and that's investment.
Yeah.
And that investment comes from a long-term strategy that we haven't had for a good while. Yeah. I think we've covered pretty much everything there. If you've thought of any other things we've spoken about?
No, I think that's about it. I enjoyed that, mate. It was great. It's good getting off
your chest, we've solved rugby league in England in 2 45-minute podcasts.
We've done well there.
In an hour and a half has been done and dusted. Yeah.
Brilliant. Loved it. We'll speak
Anything
again
else
soon,
you'd like to get off your chest?
No, I'll make some notes though, and we'll speak again soon, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about it. We'll probably do deep dives into clubs as well. I think that might be a good
idea. Yeah,
that'll be a good thing, and have a little special for everyone. And we'll see what's happened, and if there's any other big developments in the Super League world, we'll have our weekly updates, and we'll catch you on the next one. And see you later.